Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader Origin Sanctioned Psyker Guide. Let's check the origin. Let's go.
Are you ready for Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader? Because I am. The Emperor protects.
Sanctioned Psyker is the most complicated origin, or better to say, it is the most complicated class in the game, by far. This is Mage, basically a wizard in the world of Warhammer 40k. So, once we pick Sanctioned Psyker, the first one that we get is that all Psykers have reduced chance to trigger psychic phenomena. As you cast spells in this game, when you use your psychic powers, the bar will raise, and once it goes all the way up, psychic phenomena will happen, and a lot of stupid things happen during the combat. You summon demons, basically. Okay, this one reduces the chance for that to happen. 20% reduced chances. The next one would be Psy rating. The higher the Psy rating is, the more powerful spells you can get for your Psyker. And now, as you can see, we can get Psy rating 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 would be the maximum power of a Psyker. As Psy rating goes up, your spells hurt more and more. And of course, also, you unlock new spells as well. Now the next one would be Still Mind talent. The Psyker resolve is increased by willpower bonus divided by 2, while Veil degradation is 10 or lower. What is Veil degradation? That is the thing that summons demons or psychic phenomena, okay? And you're gonna receive a bar during gameplay where you're gonna keep track of a psychic phenomena, alright? Once it's down, it's safe. Once it's all the way up, a lot of things can happen. If you don't spam your abilities, your Psyker resolve will get increased. That's what the talent does. The next one is Inscribed Soul. The Psyker gains the Inscribed Soul ability. It costs no action points, but it deals direct damage to the Psyker equal to 25% of the Psyker maximum health. The next psychic power used after this ability will not trigger psychic phenomena, okay? There is no possibility to summon psychic phenomena or perils of the warp, and will not damage the veil. In other words, when you use Inscribed Soul, you're safe to cast spells without penalties. The next talent would be Sacred Rituals. Psychic powers have a 25% chance to regain action points spent on psychic powers when Veil degradation is 10 or lower. Very simple, it is what it says it does. You have a chance to recover action points. The next one would be Blade of Light. Force weapon attacks deal Psy rating more damage and have plus 5 multiplied Psy rating percentage more armor penetration. When you use force weapons, you're gonna hurt more. That's what they wanna say with a Blade of Light. Force weapons hurt more. That's it. The next one would be Enforce Reality. Usage of Heroic Act by the Psyker decreases Veil degradation by intelligence. What it means, in other words, when you use your ultimate skill, your ultimate ability as a Psyker, you're gonna decrease Veil, okay, so less shit will happen during combat. The next talent would be Psychic Barrage. Whenever the Psyker uses a damaging psychic power on a target that are 6 cells or further from the Psyker, so those that are far away, the targets suffer an additional ballistic damage. If you have ballistics on your Psyker, for example, you play a Sniper Psyker, you're gonna hurt more with your Sniper. That's what it does. The next one would be Second Sight talent. The Psyker psychic powers that have a range of 2 cells or more have the range increased by perception. It depends out of your perception bonus, and you can increase the tiles where you can reach enemies with your spells, with your psychic abilities, with a Second Sight. The next talent would be Stabilizing Factor. The first psychic power used each turn increases Veil degradation by 2 points less. If this talent reduces the effect on Veil degradation to less than 0, Veil degradation is instead decreased by 1. It is what it says it does, okay? You decrease Veil degradation. There is a smaller chance for shit to happen when you cast spells. The next would be subtle manipulation. The Psyker can use a damaging psychic power while being threatened by enemies in a melee range without provoking attacks of opportunity. So if an enemy is close by, you wanna do a spell on them, they gonna whack you if you try to cast a spell. Okay. With subtle manipulation, they won't whack you and you will be able to cast a spell and hurt them. Non-damaging psychic powers do not provoke attacks of opportunity even without this talent, so if you wanna cast a buff, debuff, you do not provoke enemies in that case. And you don't need this talent then. And the last one would be Obscured Threat. While the Psyker is not in the target's line of sight or the Psyker is in cover, all resistant tests of the target suffer -4 multiplied Psy rating penalty. Very simple, you're more resistant when you are in full cover. That's the talent. And as I said, the most complex class in a game would be Psyker. There is more. Now, with a Sanctioned Psyker, we can pick a Biomancer, a Diviner, a Pyromancer, Sanctic, and Telepath. There's a lot. Okay, now let's see what does what. And then we're gonna merge it with the homeworld. The first one in line would be Psyker Biomancer. This is for a tanky Psyker, a tanky build. Okay, Bruiser Psyker, something like your companion Heinrichs, alright, the Inquisitor. Biomancers are able to heal wounds and buff themselves up. The first thing that you're gonna receive would be the Iron Arm, that's gonna give you additional strength and toughness until the end of combat. Extremely useful spell, extremely useful. You can cast it on others as well. And now, from the talents on a Biomancer, we got Adrenaline Surge. On the first turn of every combat, all psychic powers of the Biomancer discipline cost -1 action point. What is there to say? You can cast multiple spells if you take Adrenaline Surge, okay, with your Biomancer Psyker. The next one would be Biophysical Distortion. All the Psyker's attacks, including damaging psychic powers, now poison enemies. This poison deals 4 times Psy rating damage every turn. In other words, whenever you attack an enemy, you're gonna poison them, in short. The next one would be Sanguine Siphon. Every time the Psyker deals damage, they gain +1 stack of Sanguine Siphon effect. If that damage was dealt to a target adjected to the Psyker, they gain +2 stacks instead. So that's why I say it's good to be a melee Biomancer. Right, better than ranged. You get more stacks. When the Psyker suffers little damage, the stacks of Sanguine Siphon are removed to reduce this damage by 1 for each stack, until either all stacks are removed or damage is no longer lethal. In other words, Sanguine Siphon will help you survive, and that's very good for a melee Biomancer. The next talent would be Comfort Immunity. Whenever the Psyker is healed or heals an ally, if the character being healed is already at full wounds, the character instead will gain temporary wounds equal to the healing. Temporary wounds do not stack though. What does it mean? If your character has 100 HP and you heal them with a Psyker and the heal is like 20, now they're gonna have 120 HP if they're on full health. Okay, temporary wounds, temporary health. Extremely useful. Extremely good pre-buff. The next one would be Corpus Conversion. When an enemy adjected to an ally dies, that ally gains a stacking Corpus Conversion effect. If multiple allies are adjected to the dead enemy, one is selected at random. The Psyker next psychic power that targets only the target with Corpus Conversion will work as if the Psyker Psy rating is +2 higher, will not damage the Veil, will not trigger psychic phenomena or Perils of the Warp, and it will remove -1 stack of Corpus Conversion from the target. In other words, when someone dies close by your allies or by you, and you use your spells, you do not trigger the psychic phenomena. And your Psy powers, Biomancer powers, are +2 higher, you're gonna hurt more. The next one will be Pulse of Life. Whenever the Psyker heals themselves or another character with a psychic power or an effect applied by a psychic power, the healing can critically heal with a chance of 5 plus 2 multiplied willpower bonus percentage. This critical heal chance is increased by all the effects that increase critical hit chance, and the amount healed is increased by the same value as critical damage. You can critically heal if you're lucky enough, or basically you can heal the entire health bar of your ally, or give tremendous amount of temporary wounds. The next one would be Strange Vitality. When the Psyker allies or the Psyker themselves are under the effect of the psychic powers, they gain plus 5 toughness for each of such effects. So, whenever you buff an ally with a Psyker, they're gonna gain toughness as well. They're gonna be harder to kill. Very good on temporary wounds, for example, temporary heal plus toughness now. It merges well. And the last one would be Twist Flash. Whenever an effect applied by the Psyker increases the damage suffered by a target, this effect is increased by half. For example, 20% increase turns into a 30% increase. In short, your damage dealing spells will hurt more. So what is the home world for your Biomancer Psyker? The very good one would be the Forge world with either armor or analytics, intelligence bonus, critical hit. It depends which one you like out of these two, subskin or analytics. And this would be the squishier version. The tanky version is from the Death World Psyker. Okay, full tanky Biomancer. All around supportive Psyker Biomancer would be from the Imperial world. And the last one that merges extremely well with a Biomancer, but as a spellcaster, not that much as a melee, as a spellcaster, would be the Voidborn. How you should play and what is the best? The best by far would be the Forge world with toughness armor bonus, subskin armor. The next one would be melee Death world, and then it's the Voidborn and Imperial all around. Okay, supportive. I recommend Forge world, subskin armor, Psyker, Biomancer. The next subclass of a Sanctioned Psyker would be Diviner. Diviners predict the future. Okay, they can see in the future the things that are about to come. In other words, this is a skill check Psyker, Diviner. You're gonna have a lot of good options in conversations, okay? During ambushes and so on, you're gonna smell it all, basically, up front. The next feature would be forewarning. The Psyker increases the target's dodge and parry by percentages from perception and the Psy rating, depends how high your Psy rating is, until the end of combat. What it does, it gives dodge and parry to the ally. Okay, they're harder to kill, enemies gonna miss them more. Forewarning is extremely good, especially when you cast on agility tank. It's freaking insane. Enemies will miss non-stop. Even if they hit, you have a chance to parry. Talents. The very first one would be Edge of Fate. At the beginning of every combat, the Psyker allies will gain critical hit chance, and once you score a crit, the bonus erases. Useful and not at the same time. Okay, I would never take it on unfair, for example, that's only 50% crit hit chance, but on easier difficulties, I guess it's useful. Combat will last, let's say, a turn or two less. The next talent would be a Fate Bringer. Allies under the effect of at least one psychic power, so when you buff them up, gain additional Psy rating percentage armor penetration. Good, okay, when you cast like Forewarning on Argenta, now she's gonna hurt even more with a Fate Bringer. Okay, she's gonna have additional armor penetration. She already have huge armor penetration as a soldier, marksman. Now imagine with a Fate Bringer. The next talent would be Flawless Plan. Every 9th successful dodge and or parry by the Psyker and their allies combined grants the Psyker 2 additional action points on the next turn. Very good, okay? Very, very good. You need to enemies to shoot 9 times. Doesn't matter if they hit, or you dodge, or you parry, or whatever. Once 9 attacks are triggered, you gain 2 additional action points in the next round. Very good. The next one would be predicted downfall. The first dodge attempt of every enemy in combat suffers -7 multiply Psyker Psy rating percentage penalty. In other words, to short this up, enemies won't dodge as much. Okay, you're gonna hit them. And the last talent would be unnatural luck. When the Psyker uses a divination psychic power on an ally without an unnatural luck effect, that ally gains unnatural luck. What is unnatural luck? When the ally suffers a crit, it becomes a normal hit instead, and the unnatural luck effect is removed. You can get one-shotted. Your allies cannot get one-shotted when they score a crit. It's gonna be a normal hit. Extremely good. Now, what is the home world for the Diviner? The best one, by far, for the Diviner Psyker would be the Voidborn. After the Voidborn, it's the Fortress world if you wanna deal damage as well, okay, with ballistics. And the third option would be all around Imperial world. I recommend doing Voidborn for Diviner Psyker. The next subclass of the Sanctioned Psyker would be Pyromancer. What is there to say? You're gonna burn your enemies. Simple as that. The feature you receive is Pyromancy. A Pyromancer is a master of flame, a psyker who's able to create searing infernos out of thin air. Pyromancy is one of the most spectacular and destructive forms of psychic ability, and those who face a Pyromancer in combat are often reduced to naught but a pile of charred bones. So fire spells and fire spells only. Feature would be Ignite. The target suffers a lot of damage considering your Psy rating, and it gains the Warp Burn effect. This attack has armor penetration. You burn enemies turn by turn by turn. Okay, you make them burn. Now, what is the Warp Burn? Warp Burn deals willpower bonus, so it scales with willpower, to the target at the end of their turn. At the end of every turn, they burn. If the creature passes an agility test, they remove burning. They roll the dice. Ignite is absolutely crazy good in this game. The first talent would be Blazing Inferno. The Psyker critical hit chance increases by 1% until the end of combat every time the Psyker deals damage by any means. So the combat lasts, and there are some fights that last for 20-30 minutes, okay, where you're gonna play multiple times. You can raise this up by 30%. Extremely good, Blazing Inferno. The next talent would be Backdraft. Whenever a psychic power used by the Psyker deals damage, a random enemy within 2 cells from the initial target suffers half of this damage. That damage does not trigger this talent again. Good. Okay, you hit multiple enemies at once with this talent. The next talent would be Body of Flames. The Psyker gains +8 multiply Psy rating percentage additional armor against fire. Fire can't do anything to you anymore because you're a Pyromancer. And half this amount is additional armor against energy damage from laser, melta, and plasma weapons. So enemies that shoot you from laser weapons, melta weapons, and plasma weapons will deal less damage to you. And fire deals basically nothing. Crazy defensive talent. Okay, Body of Flame. The next talent would be Relentless Blaze. When the Psyker is burning, the Psyker's Psy rating is increased by +1. Your spells hurt more. As the Psy rating rises, okay, your spells deal more damage. And the Psyker Resolve is increased by 2. Damage from fire no longer reduces the Psyker's momentum. When you burn, you do not lose momentum, so you can use your ulti spells. Okay, the Relentless Blaze is pretty much a must as soon as possible. The next one would be Burning Blood. When the Psyker uses a psychic power, all enemies attracted to the Psyker suffer 4 times Psy rating direct damage. The same also happens when the Psyker suffers damage from burn, bleed, or melee attacks. Now, should I call this that you're chaotic? Everything around you burns, bleed, your allies, enemies, everything around you is chaos. That's the talent. The next one would be Warped Minds. After every 6th use of psychic powers, after every 6th spell, By the Psyker, all enemies gain a stacking -5 penalty to all characteristics until the end of combat. When they receive the penalty to all characteristics, they get weaker, and hence they're easier to kill. Extremely good spell, Warp Minds, extremely good. The next talent would be Melting Like Wax. Every time an enemy suffers damage from the Psyker, the enemy armor is reduced by -3%. If the enemy armor is already 0, this enemy deflection is reduced by 1%, by -1 flat instead. Great spell, great talent, you just reduce their armor, and after that you're gonna reduce their deflection. They get squishier and squishier, hence easier to kill. This is a boss killer spell. And the last talent would be Sparks of the Greater Flame. All damage over time effects applied by the Psyker gain 5 + 5 multiplied Psy rating percentage critical hit chance. The chance is increased by all bonuses to critical hit chance. To make it short, you're gonna crit more often as a Psyker. Now, what is the best homeworld for the Pyromancer Psyker? The first and the obvious one would be the Forge world, cause the fires of the Forge merges well with the Pyromancer. Okay, you receive intelligence, you'll be a bit more tougher, okay, and from here you can get agility bonus to dodge as well, okay, from the locomotion system. Extremely good. Also, you can profit out of analytics. I recommend locomotion Pyromancer Psyker from the Forge world. The second obvious choice would be the Voidborn, classic mage Pyromancer. Okay, if you wanna play something as an evocation wizard from Wrath of the Righteous, this is it. Voidborn, psychic, Pyromancer. And for the end, all around, Imperial world merges with everything, a bit of damage, a bit of support. The next subclass of a Sanctioned Psyker would be Sanctic. Servants of the Emperor, those that hate demons, Great Inquisitors. In other words, you're tanky, bulky, Psyker, Sanctic, buffing and protecting allies and dealing damage to heretics. The feature that we get is the Word of the Emperor. All allies in a circle with a 5-cell radius gain Psy rating resolve until the end of the combat. Every additional stack of this effect increases the resolve bonus by +2. You are a bulky Psyker, okay, tank Psyker, and everyone around you gets protection from the Word of the Emperor. From the talents, we get Destined as the first one for the Sanctic. The Psyker armor increases by 5%. This bonus increases by 5% at the start of every turn of combat except the first. You get tankier and tankier the more you spend time in combat. Okay, extremely good. The next one would be Edge of Dawn. Enemies adjacent to the Psyker suffer 10% more damage, so you're a bulky, tanky, Sanctic Psyker, you go all in into enemies, they surround you, and then your allies will deal 10% more damage when shooting them, as long as you stay close to those enemies, as a Sanctic. The next one would be Eternal Glory talent. The first time that momentum reaches 200 during the Psyker turn, the Psyker gains +5 to all characteristics, +1 to resolve, 1 to deflection, 1 to all damage that the Psyker deals until the end of combat. So when you build up momentum, and you can build up momentum very fast if you know what you're doing, you get huge perma buffs until the end of the combat. Eternal Glory is freaking crazy. The next talent would be Psalms of Heroes. The Psyker Psy rating is increased by +1 until the end of combat every time an ally uses a heroic act. So when your allies use ultis, okay, the most powerful spells in the game that you build with momentum. So once they use ultis, your Psy rating goes up. Hence, your powers become stronger. You're gonna hurt more, your buffs will be more potent. Okay, Psalm of Heroes is absolutely great if you wanna play something as a support, tanky Sanctic. The next one would be Sanctified Slayer. The Psyker critical hit chance is increased by his resolve percentage. The bigger your resolve is, and it is big because you're tanky, the bigger your critical hit chance is. Very simple to understand, you hurt more when you take this talent. What is the best homeworld for our tanky Sanctic Psyker? The obvious choice would be the Death World, cause you receive all the tanky stats that you need. The next choice would be the High World, supportive tanky Psyker. Your third choice would be the Forge World with subskin armor to become even more tankier. Okay, you just go here and pick subskin armor. All around Imperial, a bit of tankiness, a bit of support. So which one we gonna take? I recommend Death World as the best one, closely followed by the Forge World, subskin armor, into the High World, into the Imperial World. This is the best one by far for Sanctic. And the last subclass for the Psyker would be Telepath, or better to say, this is a classic Psyker, default Psyker, damage dealing Psyker with psychic abilities. They're debuffers, buffers, and damage dealers. Classic mages. The first feature that you receive would be telepathy. You charm an enemy. You make him play for you, or you fear them, or do stupid stuff to them, okay? You manipulate enemies with telepathy. The next feature would be Psychic Shriek, your main damage dealing spell. Huge AoE damage dealing spell. That's what Psychic Shriek is. You shout and you deal damage. Now, from the talents, the first one will be Aftershock. What is Aftershock? Every time the Psyker deals mental damage from any source other than Aftershock, the target suffers half as much mental damage at the end of its next turn. You transfer damage to the next turn when you deal mental damage to enemies. You'll see what mental spells are once you start playing. The next talent would be Mental Breach. Enemies that have taken damage from the Psyker at least once suffer -20 penalty to all resist tests against the Psyker until the end of combat. If you cast a spell that requires resists, okay, on each turn, for example, for them to set free from the mind control, let's say, they got lower chance to roll good and release themselves from your influence, from your mind controlling spells. When you take Mental Breach, they're yours, you command them. The next talent would be Mind Siege. Enemies that have failed a willpower resist test against any of the Psyker psychic powers will suffer additional mental damage every time they suffer mental damage until the end of combat. So Mental Breach merges extremely well with Mind Siege, alright? The next one would be Mind Thief talent. Anytime an enemy becomes a target of any particular Psyker ability for the first time, this enemy suffers a -5 penalty to their intelligence and perception, and the Psyker intelligence and perception increases by +2 until the end of combat. What it does, in short, you debuff enemy and buff yourself. Enemy hurt less, squishier, you hurt more, tankier. That's it. The next one would be Pain Channeling talent. Whenever the Psyker kills an enemy with a psychic power, dealing more damage than wounds of the target, the excess damage will be dealt to the enemy closest to the target. So when you overkill an enemy, the other one close by will suffer additional damage of the overkill. Very good talent for aggressive Telepath. The next talent would be Visions of Doom. Enemies that become targets of the Psyker psychic powers gain a stacking -5% penalty to their dodge and parry until the end of combat. Enemies that you hit, no matter with what, will become easier targets for you and for your allies to kill. Simple as that. The next one would be Warp Minds. After every 6 use of psychic power by the Psyker, all enemies gain a stacking -5 penalty to all characteristics until the end of combat. You easily gonna use during combat your powers 6 times, okay? And then all enemies will be weaker after that. Very simple. The last talent would be Weak Hearts. Enemies currently afflicted with blinded, stunned, immobilized, or prone, and you do that as a Psyker to them, suffer +10% more damage. Boss killer, okay, you put some of these effects on a boss, and then they suffer 10% more damage from your allies. That's how it works. So what is the best home world for Telepath? Pure Psyker, okay. Buffer, debuffer, damage dealing Psyker Telepath. The best one by far is the Voidborn. If you wanna shoot and have abilities as well, then you're gonna pick Fortress World as the whole world. Imperial world for a supportive, mage-like all-around Psyker Telepath. And one of the best things to take would be the Forge World analytics system that gonna grant increased criticals if you go with the Forge World analytics. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I thank to all of my patrons and all of the members on my YouTube channel. As always, thank you all for your support, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Are you ready for Warhammer 40k rogue trader? Because I am. The Emperor protects.